Good evening, beloved friends. My name is Swami Amrito, and I am doing a video today in response to this new video that has been published by Vice that is making its rounds, according to me, in reference to me, because they've got many videos that hit the hundreds of Ks into the millions, but something that is in reference point to me is a lot. So Vice did a little mini documentary or a review of a documentary, Wild Wild Country, and they covered an event that was done in my space, in my home, which I call the Wild Wild OSHO Meditation Center. And this is an event where we had some special guests from Pune, Krishna Prem, Satsavya, Satboda. And we had about 35 to 36 people that were there for the event. It was amazing. I called the event Wild Wild Meditations, and it caught the attention of someone at Vice who reached out to me and asked whether or not I'm interested in having them come in and film our entire day. And let me tell you, when I initially got the request, it was almost surreal in a way, because I've been doing these events for a while, and for the longest time I've been seeing and being inspired by many different OSHO groups around the world who've been featured in the press, and I used to be, always on the lookout for some of these older videos from the Rajneesh days or Pune 1 days, particularly from the outside press, whether it was a negative video or a positive video. I enjoyed seeing an outside perspective in terms of what was happening. And that moment when I was reached out to from Vice, it was something I knew I was definitely going to do, but I knew at the same time that perhaps not everyone was going to be comfortable with it. But my man KP was absolutely, from the get-go, yeah, we got to do this. And understandably, there was people that, that were at the event that were very cautious about it, because it put us in a vulnerable position. Where many very sensitive OSHO meditations, such as OSHO dynamic meditation, would have been covered, and people in very emotional states were going to basically have that image of themselves published to the world. And after reviewing that little mini documentary, that 9 minutes, I'm satisfied to see what they've done in terms of covering our event, and I actually feel like, we got off a little bit easy compared to some other little docs that have been done on OSHO groups, and I'm happy about that. At the same time, there was many things that were said in the interview that obviously had been edited. There was many points I made and KP had made in regards to very controversial topics that didn't make its way in. And at the same time, certain sentences were edited, so there was sometimes not as much context as we would have liked for the audience. But again, that being said, and understanding where Vice is coming from as well, I'm actually very happy with the end result, because I've got friends that are asking me about it. There was a couple of new people that showed up because of it, and ultimately, it was controversial, and I love it because I love OSHO for the controversy. OSHO is controversy. I think that's one of the points that came up in the documentary as well, which was, is how do you feel about OSHO's controversy? And they related it to the past. OSHO was controversial back in the days of Rajneesh and, Pune 1 and ultimately just before he left his body. But I'm telling you right now, OSHO is controversial. He is controversial now. He is ruffling feathers now. He's a disruptor, right? And it's only these days that we hear that term disruptor, especially in the tech field where there's new companies coming out innovating new products, and they're called disruptors because they change the way that people think. And OSHO definitely, early days, was a disruptor in terms of the context of the world that OSHO lived physically in. But even now, in the context of the world that we're living in, he is a disruptor. There's proof of that. If you go in to any of the comment threads that had this video posted, in particular about us from Vice, if you look at those comments, holy crap. Is OSHO really not here? Because he's causing a lot of shit to be stirred, if I put it politely. And that's great, because that is actually a very integral part of the message. At the same time, there was controversy within friends that are my close friends, friends within the OSHO world. There's controversy there from some of the things that were said. There was a particular question toward the end, and I didn't prepare for an interview. I don't even prepare for giving any types of talks, or even now I'm not even preparing. And that's just the way that I go about speaking, because I really want to be responding to the moment, being there. And I find that if I'm right there and there's no preconceived notion of what I'm going to say next, then what I have to say is more significant and more meaningful. So there was a particular question at the end, and they really just, boom, right at that point, they cut it off. And I knew that, it's hard to remember, but I knew there was a long elaboration behind the points I was making. But there was a particular question, would you go back, or would you go to Rajneeshpuram if it existed today? And I said, surprisingly to myself, because there's a question asked like that over the phone just a couple weeks ago, and I said opposite. I would say, absolutely I would go there. And that moment, I said, I wouldn't go there. And the reason that I gave for it was vast, but it really just cut the point where I said OSHO and the communal experiment had failed. And I didn't mean that OSHO's communal experiment had failed. I just said the experiment of the commune and the communal living ultimately had failed. Now, it's hard to understand because I'm not talking about it from the reference point of then. Of course, there was issues at that point with Rajneeshpuram and the organizational power struggle that came down with Sheila and whatnot. I'm not talking about that because at that point I wasn't there. At this point, that is the reference point where I was looking at it from, because there are communes that exist in the world. And I have experienced some of these communes, and there were many beautiful, beautiful things that have happened within these communes. And one particular commune, I'll give an example about, is OSHO Tapoban in Nepal. And it was one of the first places I went to experience this OSHO phenomenon. When I was around 19 or 20 in 2006, I flew down to Nepal. That's where I'm from originally as well. And I spent 2 weeks, doing 7-day total transformation meditation camps. And this was under the guidance of Swami Arun, who's the coordinator of OSHO Tapoban. And I had an amazing experience there. It was lovely in OSHO Tapoban. It was in the hills and the mountains. And that was a particular place that really loudly propagates the commune and the communal living phenomenon that OSHO had so much spoken about. And that's where slowly I started getting some experiences where I realized, what OSHO had spoken about in regards to the commune, this particular place was going about it with their own interpretations or with the interpretation of one single figure. And it was a vast difference from what I had read, what I had heard about from others, and what was actually happening. So I had a great experience during the meditation camps because you do great OSHO meditations. You're in that climate. But then what I noticed also was there was a very dominant personality within that commune that people almost looked up to as the second in command when it came to their allegiances with OSHO and whatnot. They were literally taking word for word everything that Swami Arun was saying about OSHO, even more so than OSHO himself. And that's where I started seeing a little bit of that separation between what I originally said, yes, we need communes in the world. But when I saw this happening, just on an ideological level, I said, how did this happen? And that environment that was created, the dark parts of it were inclusive of abuses, like sexual abuse happening, fanaticism happening, abuse even just on a physical level happening. And there was people that were just either blindly following this interpretation of this person, of what it means to be an OSHO sannyasin or a disciple, and there was others that didn't really buy into that. And it wouldn't take long before those types of people would be pushed to the perimeters. So when I experienced this, in the perspective of also being an organizer for this person and doing meditation camps in Canada, I looked at that whole phenomenon of commune and communal living, and I had to go back and start reading OSHO again and just find out what was that last type of contribution that OSHO made before he left his body, because this particular person that is running things in OSHO Tapoban was absolutely always against that last dream that OSHO left, which was in Pune. This person was so violently against everything that they were doing, calling them criminals, saying that they killed OSHO. I went there and I experienced something completely different than the gossip. And I experienced something that's obviously different than the conditioning I just went through, which, you know, on the front of it looked very loving and devotional, but on the back of it was filled with fanaticism and just blind devotion. And when I saw Buddha in the front of it, it looked like a very commercialized type of setting. But in the depth of it, it didn't have any type of middleman for me to connect directly with Osho or have that direct experience. Now, I recently just went there again and I explored it for 10 days, and I came back so enriched by that entire experience because it didn't have any type of interpretation by anyone for me to be in meditation. And ultimately, I think that was one of Osho's contributions, that you do not need to follow anyone, including Osho himself, in terms of, lecture by lecture, because he's contradicted so many things that he says from one lecture to the other. The last remaining thing is meditation. Do meditation, become aware of yourself. So coming back to this point where they said, would you go back? Well, absolutely I wouldn't, because that happened in the past. So I don't know what would have happened now. That's a different type of, that's more fantasizing. But the whole point was, that communal living, that communal experiment from my reference point. And that's why I'm elaborating. There's other communes that exist, but I'm elaborating from my point of view, that the one that I had seen, and what I've seen over the last 7 or 8 years, 12 years since I've been there, but what I've seen is a completely different environment than what I have experienced with Osho's books and Osho's talks. And from that perspective, that's where an answer came to me and said, no, I'm living in the now. I'm enjoying Osho right here, right now. I'm not dependent on a particular place for Osho to be affecting my life. Osho is affecting me here, now, anywhere I'd like, with the way that the world is now, through my phone, through the internet, through books. Osho is a living teaching. I'm not making Osho into a disembodied master or someone that, I'm creating a fantasy about in terms of who that person was back in, the 80s or 90s. No, I'm living that contribution, that message. If Osho just said, worship me, that'd be a different thing. But Osho said, do meditation. Find yourself. And that is happening every single day. And that is happening now. Now, because of this moment, because of what is happening now, if the next moment creates something similar to a commune or something similar to a Osho meditation resort, then that's fantastic. That's great. That will happen. But I'm not going to idealize that phenomenon now, right? Because that means I'm not really here. I'm thinking about the future, about how great I want things to be. But why can't I start doing all those things in the space of my own home? And if you really read Osho's message on the commune, every single home can be a commune. A village can be a commune. People just living close to each other, meeting, doing meditations can be a commune, right? It's just, for me, when I looked at communes, that experiment continuing today, it wasn't just an isolated incident with what I saw in OSHO Tapoban. It was also, just recently there's a commune that was started in Mexico, riddled with abuses, riddled with sexual harassment. There's people that have gone and experienced bliss there, but at the same time, there are also people that have gone and felt very caged in, very fanatical. They saw the fanatics happening, and I don't feel like that is OSHO's message to be ultimately a fanatic. That is, I believe, in my opinion, the complete opposite of what OSHO was proposing. So friends, I know this is a bit of a longer video, but it was, again, something that has come up, and I'm responding to it. And ultimately, what has happened with this little Vice mini documentary, I think, has been great. I think has, at least from the small sample size I've seen, has generated a positive curiosity about OSHO and his work. And I'm not saying I am absolutely right about everything. I'm just saying that is me, and this is me, and this is what I'm feeling. And you're welcome to have your own opinions, but I needed to kind of elaborate a little bit more because I knew it was causing ruffling some feathers even within the OSHO world, which is great. It's a good thing. So thank you, friends. I love you. Bye-bye.